What would you do if a single moment of kindness revealed the darkest secret your entire world was built upon? When palace guard Marcus Rodriguez caught the falling princess in his arms that Tuesday morning, he thought he was simply doing his duty. He had no idea that the trembling young woman he held would whisper 3 words that would shatter everything he believed about the royal family he had sworn to protect. They killed him. In the grand hallways of Valdoria Palace, where golden chandeliers cast dancing shadows and portraits of dead kings watch with painted eyes, not everything is as beautiful as it appears. Behind the marble walls and silk curtains, behind the public smiles and royal waves, lies a web of lies so thick that even the princess herself doesn't know how deep it goes. This is the true story of how one guard's simple act of catching a falling girl uncovered a conspiracy that reached from the palace dungeons to the throne room itself. A story of courage, betrayal, and the price of truth, in a world where silence is golden and secrets are deadly. Are you ready to discover what really happens when the palace gates close and the cameras stop rolling? Marcus Rodriguez had been guarding the east wing of Valdoria Palace for 3 years, but he had never seen Princess Kate look so pale. As he stood at his post near the morning room, watching the sunlight stream through the tall windows, he noticed her walking down the marble hallway with unsteady steps. The princess was usually graceful, moving through the palace corridors with the confidence that came from growing up in these golden halls. But today was different. Her normally perfect posture was slightly hunched, and she kept one hand pressed against the wall as if she needed support. Marcus straightened his shoulders and kept his eyes forward, the way he had been trained. Palace guards were supposed to be invisible, present but not intrusive. They were meant to see everything and say nothing. It was a rule that had served him well during his time at the palace. The princess wore a simple blue dress that morning, nothing like the elaborate gowns she usually wore for public appearances. Her dark hair was pulled back in a loose bun, and even from his position, Marcus could see that her hands were shaking slightly. He had always admired Princess Kate from a distance. Unlike some of the other royal family members who barely acknowledged the staff, she always nodded politely when she passed the guards. She remembered their names and asked about their families during the holiday gatherings. The palace staff often said she was the kindest member of the royal family. As she moved closer to where Marcus stood guard, he noticed something that made his heart skip. Her face was not just pale, it was gray, the color of someone who was seriously ill. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she had not slept well in days, maybe weeks. The princess was about 20 feet away from him when it happened. Her knees buckled without warning. One moment she was walking, the next she was falling toward the hard marble floor. Marcus moved faster than he had ever moved in his life. His training kicked in immediately, and he lunged forward, catching her just before her head would have hit the ground. The impact sent them both stumbling, but Marcus managed to keep his balance while cradling the unconscious princess in his arms. She was lighter than he expected, much lighter than someone her age should be. For a few seconds, the palace hallway was completely silent, except for the sound of his own heavy breathing. Marcus looked down at the princess in his arms and felt a surge of panic. What was he supposed to do? He had been trained to protect the royal family. But this situation was not covered in any of his instruction manuals. Princess Kate's eyelids fluttered, and she slowly opened her eyes. When she saw Marcus holding her, confusion crossed her face for a moment, before she seemed to remember what had happened. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I must have lost my balance." Marcus carefully helped her stand, keeping his hands ready in case she fell again. "Are you all right, Your Highness? Should I call the palace doctor?" The princess shook her head quickly, almost desperately. "No, please don't call anyone. I'm fine, really. Just a little dizzy." But Marcus could see that she was far from fine. Up close, he could see that her lips had a slight blue tinge, and her breathing seemed labored. These were not the signs of someone who was simply tired or stressed. "Your Highness, with respect, you don't look well. Perhaps you should sit down for a moment." The princess looked around the empty hallway as if making sure no one else was watching. Then she did something that surprised Marcus completely. Instead of dismissing him or walking away, she moved closer and lowered her voice to barely more than a whisper. "Guard Rodriguez, isn't it?" Marcus was surprised that she knew his name. "Yes, Your Highness." You've been working here for about 3 years? Yes, ma'am. Princess Kate studied his face carefully, as if she was trying to make some kind of important decision. Her eyes darted toward the security cameras mounted on the walls, then back to his face. Can I trust you? She asked quietly. The question caught Marcus off guard. In his 3 years of service, no member of the royal family had ever asked him anything personal. They gave orders, made requests, but they never asked if they could trust him. Of course, Your Highness. I took an oath to protect the royal family. The princess was quiet for a long moment. She seemed to be struggling with something internal, some kind of decision that was causing her obvious distress. That's not what I mean, she said finally. I mean, can I trust you as a person? Not as a guard, but as someone who might care about what's right. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. This conversation was moving into territory that felt dangerous, but something about the desperate look in the princess's eyes made him want to help her. I tried to do what's right, Your Highness. The princess looked around the hallway again, then stepped even closer. When she spoke, her voice was so quiet that Marcus had to lean in to hear her. They killed him. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. I'm sorry, Your Highness, I don't understand. My brother, she whispered, and tears began to form in her eyes. They say he died in a car accident 6 months ago, but he didn't. They killed him, and now they're trying to kill me too. Marcus felt the world shift around him. Prince David's death had been international news. The young prince who was next in line for the throne had died when his car crashed into a tree on a country road late at night. The official investigation had concluded that he had been driving too fast and lost control of the vehicle. Your Highness, I think you might be confused. The prince's death was an accident. There was a full investigation. The princess grabbed his arm, her fingers digging into his uniform sleeve. No, you don't understand. David called me the night he died. He said he had discovered something terrible about our father, something that would destroy the monarchy. He was going to go public with it. Marcus looked into her eyes and saw something that made his stomach drop. She was not confused or delusional. She was terrified, and she believed completely in what she was saying. The next morning, they told me he was dead, she continued. Car accident, they said. But David was the most careful driver I knew. He never sped, never took risks. And the road where he crashed, he drove that road 100 times. He knew every turn. The princess released his arm and wrapped her arms around herself as if she was cold. Ever since then, I've been getting sick. Just little things at first. Headaches, nausea, feeling tired all the time. But it's getting worse. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Your Highness, what are you saying? I think they're poisoning me, she said, and the words came out like a confession she had been holding inside for months. Slowly, so it looks like I'm just getting sick naturally. When I die, there will be no investigation, no questions. Just a tragic illness that took the princess too young. The hallway suddenly felt very cold and very empty. Marcus looked at the security cameras again and wondered who might be watching this conversation. He thought about his job, his family, his future. He thought about the oath he had taken to protect the royal family. But mostly, he thought about the terrified young woman standing in front of him, asking for his help. Why are you telling me this? He asked quietly. Because you caught me when I fell, she said simply. In that moment, when you could have just let me hit the floor and claimed you didn't see what happened, you chose to help me. I need someone who will make that choice again. Marcus felt the weight of her words. What do you want me to do? Help me find proof, she said. Help me discover what David found out about our father. Help me stay alive long enough to tell the world the truth. The princess reached into the pocket of her dress and pulled out a small key. She pressed it into Marcus's hand, closing his fingers around it. This opens a safety deposit box at First National Bank downtown. David gave it to me 2 weeks before he died. Told me to keep it safe. He said if anything ever happened to him, I should look inside. But I've been too scared to go alone. Marcus stared at the key in his palm. It was small and ordinary looking, but he could feel that it represented something much larger and more dangerous. Your Highness, if what you're saying is true, then we're both in danger just by having this conversation. I know, she said, but I can't do this alone anymore. I'm getting weaker every day. Soon, I might not be able to walk down this hallway at all. Marcus looked at the young woman who had just trusted him with what might be the most dangerous secret in the kingdom. 3 years ago, when he had taken the job as a palace guard, he had thought his biggest challenges would be standing still for long hours and staying alert during boring royal functions. Now he was holding a key that might unlock a conspiracy that could destroy everything he thought he knew about the royal family he had sworn to protect. "When do you want to go?" he asked. The relief on Princess Kate's face was immediate and overwhelming. For the first time since he had caught her falling, she almost smiled. "Tomorrow is Saturday. The guards change shifts at 3 o'clock. Can you meet me at the south gate at 3:15? Marcus nodded, still not quite believing what he was agreeing to do. "I'll be there." The princess reached out and touched his arm again, but this time her touch was gentle, grateful. "Thank you, Marcus. You might be the only person left who can help me find the truth." As she walked away, moving more steadily than she had before, Marcus remained standing in the empty hallway, staring at the key in his hand. He thought about his simple life before this moment, when his biggest worry was whether he would get approved for the overtime shifts he wanted to work. Now he was part of something that could get him killed. But as he watched Princess Kate disappear around the corner, he knew he had made the right choice. If she was telling the truth, then she was in terrible danger, and he might be her only hope. If she was wrong, then he would help her discover that and hopefully ease her fears. Either way, he would meet her tomorrow at 3:15. Marcus slipped the key into his pocket and returned to his post, but his mind was racing. He spent the rest of his shift thinking about everything Princess Kate had told him, analyzing her words and her behavior, trying to decide if he believed her. By the time his shift ended, he had reached a conclusion that both excited and terrified him. He believed her completely. That evening, Marcus sat in his small apartment, staring at the key on his kitchen table. He had always lived a quiet life, keeping to himself, following the rules, staying out of trouble. But tomorrow, he was going to walk into a bank with a member of the royal family and open a safety deposit box that might contain evidence of murder. He thought about calling in sick the next day, pretending this conversation had never happened. He thought about returning the key to Princess Kate and telling her he had changed his mind. But every time he considered backing out, he remembered the desperate look in her eyes when she had asked if she could trust him. Marcus Rodriguez had spent his whole life being ordinary, invisible, unimportant. Tomorrow, that was going to change forever. Saturday afternoon came too quickly for Marcus. He had barely slept the night before, tossing and turning as he imagined all the ways this plan could go wrong. At exactly 3:15, he stood at the south gate of the palace wearing civilian clothes instead of his guard uniform. The south gate was the least monitored entrance to the palace grounds, used mainly for deliveries and staff coming and going. Marcus had chosen this location specifically because fewer security cameras covered this area. Princess Kate appeared right on time, but Marcus almost didn't recognize her. She wore dark sunglasses, a simple brown coat, and had her hair hidden under a blue scarf. Without her usual elegant clothes and perfect makeup, she looked like any other young woman walking down the street. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly as she approached him. Marcus nodded, still feeling nervous about what they were about to do. "Are you feeling better today?" "A little," she said, but he could see that she was still pale. "I didn't eat breakfast this morning. I've started to wonder if the food is how they're doing it." They walked toward the main street in silence. Marcus kept watching the people around them, looking for anyone who might be following them or paying too much attention to their movements. He had never felt so paranoid in his life. First National Bank was a 20-minute walk from the palace. It was an old building with marble columns and brass doors, the kind of place that looked serious and trustworthy. Marcus had never been inside before. As they approached the entrance, Princess Kate stopped walking and turned to face him. "Before we go in, I need to tell you something," she said. "If we find what I think we're going to find in that safety deposit box, our lives are going to change forever. Are you sure you want to do this?" Marcus thought about the comfortable routine of his old life, when his biggest concern was which television show to watch after work. Then he looked at the young woman standing in front of him, who was asking for his help to uncover the truth about her brother's death. "I'm sure," he said. They walked into the bank together. The inside was all polished wood and soft lighting, with thick carpets that muffled the sound of their footsteps. A security guard nodded politely as they passed, and Marcus wondered if the man would remember seeing them later. Princess Kate approached the customer service desk and spoke to a middle-aged woman with gray hair and kind eyes. "I'd like to access a safety deposit box, please," she said, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "Of course. Do you have the box number and key?" Princess Kate handed over a slip of paper with a number written on it, along with the key she had given to Marcus the day before. The woman looked at the paperwork and then at Princess Kate's identification. "I'll need to verify your identity and signature," the woman said. "This box is registered under Prince David's name, with you listed as an authorized user." Marcus felt his heart skip when he heard Prince David's name spoken out loud. Until that moment, this had all felt almost like a game or an adventure. Now it felt very real and very dangerous. They were led to a small private room in the basement of the bank. The walls were lined with safety deposit boxes of various sizes, each one locked and numbered. The bank employee located the correct box and used both the bank's master key and the key Princess Kate had provided to open it. "Take your time," the woman said as she left them alone in the room. "Ring the buzzer when you're finished." Princess Kate reached into the box with shaking hands. Marcus stood beside her, equally nervous about what they might find. The box contained several items that made Marcus's blood run cold. There was a thick manila envelope, a small recording device, and several photographs. Princess Kate pulled out the photographs first. The pictures showed King William, Princess Kate's father, meeting with several men in what appeared to be a private office. Marcus recognized one of the men as Viktor Kozlov, a Russian businessman who had been in the news recently for his alleged connections to organized crime. "David always suspected that father was involved in something illegal," Princess Kate whispered as she studied the photographs. "But I never believed him. I thought he was just being paranoid." Marcus looked at the photos more closely. The men in the pictures were clearly comfortable with each other, shaking hands and smiling as if they were old friends. In one photo, he could see briefcases on the table between them. Princess Kate opened the manila envelope next. Inside were bank statements, legal documents, and what appeared to be email printouts. As she read through them, her face became even paler than usual. "Oh my God," she breathed. "David was right about everything. What does it say? These are bank records showing payments from Kozlov's companies to accounts controlled by father. Millions of dollars transferred over the past 5 years." Her hands were shaking as she held the documents. "And these emails, they're discussing arms sales to countries that are supposed to be under international sanctions." Marcus felt sick to his stomach. If these documents were real, then the King of Valdoria was involved in illegal weapons trafficking with one of the world's most dangerous criminals. "There's more," Princess Kate said, pulling out additional papers. "Look at this." The document she handed him was a contract of some kind, written in both English and Russian. Marcus couldn't understand all of the legal language, but he could see that it involved the transfer of weapons and military equipment worth hundreds of millions of dollars. "Your brother discovered all of this?" "David was working on his master's degree in international relations," Princess Kate explained. "He had access to government databases for his research. I think he stumbled across some of these transactions by accident, and then started digging deeper." She picked up the small recording device and pressed the play button. After a few seconds of static, they heard Prince David's voice, clear and nervous. "If you're listening to this, Kate, then something has happened to me. I tried to confront father about what I discovered, and he didn't deny any of it. He said that the weapons sales were necessary to maintain Valdoria's independence, that the money was being used to strengthen our military and protect our borders." The recording paused for a moment, then continued. "But I know that's not true. I've seen where the money is really going. Father has been using it to buy properties all over the world, to set up secret bank accounts, to live a lifestyle that goes far beyond what the royal budget should allow. He's not protecting Valdoria. He's selling weapons to terrorists and war criminals so he can live like an emperor." Princess Kate closed her eyes as she listened to her brother's voice. Marcus could see tears forming behind her sunglasses. "I'm going to go public with this information," Prince David's voice continued. "I've made copies of everything and given them to trusted contacts in the international press. If father tries to stop me or if anything happens to me, they have instructions to release everything." The recording ended there, leaving them sitting in silence in the small bank room. If David had copies of everything, and he gave them to journalists, why didn't the story ever come out? Marcus asked. "Because he died before he could go public," Princess Kate said quietly. "And whoever father is working with, they're powerful enough to make sure the story stayed buried." Marcus thought about the implications of what they had just discovered. "Princess, if your father is involved with people like Viktor Kozlov, then you're in more danger than you realized. These aren't people who just make problems disappear quietly. They make people disappear." "I know," she said. "That's why I need your help. I can't do this alone." They spent the next hour going through every document in the safety deposit box. By the time they finished, Marcus had a clear understanding of the scope of the conspiracy. The King of Valdoria had been involved in illegal arms trafficking for at least 5 years, working with Russian criminal organizations to sell weapons to countries and groups that were supposed to be cut off from international arms markets. The profits from these sales had been used to fund the king's personal lifestyle and to build a network of secret assets around the world. It was exactly the kind of scandal that would not only destroy the monarchy, but could also result in criminal charges and international sanctions against the entire country. "What do we do now?" Marcus asked as they prepared to leave the bank. "We need to find out who David gave copies to," Princess Kate said. "If those journalists are still alive, maybe we can work with them to expose the truth." They returned the documents to the safety deposit box, but Princess Kate kept one photograph and a few of the most important papers. As they left the bank, Marcus felt like they were being watched, though he couldn't see anyone suspicious. The walk back to the palace felt much longer than the trip to the bank. They barely spoke, both lost in their own thoughts about what they had discovered and what it meant for their future. As they approached the palace gates, Princess Kate stopped and turned to Marcus. "I need to ask you something," she said. "Are you willing to help me contact the journalist that David was working with?" Marcus thought about his comfortable life as a palace guard, about his small apartment and his quiet routine. Then he thought about Prince David, who had died trying to expose the truth, and about Princess Kate, who was slowly being poisoned by people who were supposed to love and protect her. "What would that involve?" "I have David's personal laptop hidden in my room. I think the contact information might be on there, but I can't access it alone. I need someone to help me, someone I can trust." Marcus looked at the palace walls rising in front of them, and for the first time in 3 years, the building looked more like a prison than a home. "When do you want to do it?" "Tonight," she said. "After midnight, when most of the staff has gone home. Can you meet me in the East Wing?" Marcus nodded, even though every instinct he had was telling him to run away from this situation as fast as possible. "There's something else you should know," Princess Kate said as they reached the gate. "If we're going to do this, we need to be very careful about what we eat and drink. If they're poisoning me, they might try to do the same to you once they realize you're helping me." The thought hadn't occurred to Marcus before, but now it made perfect sense. If he was going to help expose a conspiracy that reached to the highest levels of the government, he was putting himself in the same danger that had already killed Prince David. "How do we protect ourselves?" "I've been eating only packaged food that I can open myself," she said. "And I only drink water from bottles that I buy personally. It's not perfect, but it's better than trusting anything that comes from the palace kitchen." They separated at the gate, with Princess Kate returning to her royal duties, and Marcus trying to figure out how he was going to get through the rest of his day knowing what he now knew. That evening, Marcus sat in his apartment, staring at the photograph Princess Kate had taken from the safety deposit box. It showed King William shaking hands with Viktor Kozlov, both men smiling as if they were celebrating a successful business deal. 3 days ago, Marcus had been a loyal palace guard who respected and admired the royal family. Now he was planning to break into the princess's private quarters to help her access her dead brother's laptop so they could expose the king as a criminal. He thought about calling the police, but he realized that if the king was involved with international criminals, then the local police might not be trustworthy either. He thought about contacting the international press himself, but he had no credibility and no proof that anyone would believe. The only option was to help Princess Kate find the journalists that Prince David had been working with and hope that they were still alive and still willing to pursue the story. At 11:30 that night, Marcus left his apartment and walked back to the palace. The night shift was smaller than the day shift, and he knew which guards would be on duty and where they would be positioned. Getting into the East Wing without being seen would be difficult, but not impossible. He had been working at the palace for 3 years, and he knew every corridor, every camera angle, and every blind spot in the security system. As he approached the palace, Marcus realized that his life was about to change in ways he couldn't even imagine. By tomorrow morning, he would either be a hero who had helped expose one of the biggest political scandals in history, or he would be dead. But as he thought about Princess Kate, alone in her room and slowly dying from poison, he knew he had no choice but to keep going. The truth had to come out, no matter what the cost. Marcus had studied the palace security system for months, but he had never thought he would use that knowledge to break into the building where he worked. As he moved through the shadows near the East Wing, he felt like a criminal, even though he was trying to do the right thing. The East Wing housed the royal family's private quarters, and it was the most heavily guarded section of the palace. During the day, there were guards at every entrance and cameras monitoring every corridor. At night, the security was reduced but still formidable. Marcus knew that the guard at the east entrance would take his smoke break at exactly midnight. It was against palace regulations, but the guard thought no one knew about his habit. Marcus had seen him leave his post dozens of times over the past year. At 5 minutes after midnight, Marcus slipped through the side door that the guard had left propped open. He moved quickly through the corridors he knew so well, staying close to the walls and avoiding the areas where he knew cameras were positioned. Princess Kate's room was on the 3rd floor, at the end of a long hallway lined with portraits of previous royal family members. As Marcus climbed the stairs, he felt like the painted eyes were watching him, judging him for what he was doing. The princess was waiting for him at her door, dressed in dark clothes and looking nervous but determined. "Did anyone see you?" she whispered as she led him into her room. "I don't think so," Marcus replied, though he couldn't be completely sure. Princess Kate's private quarters were more modest than Marcus had expected. The room was large but simply furnished, with a comfortable bed, a desk by the window, and bookshelves filled with novels and textbooks. It looked more like a college student's room than a royal princess's bedroom. "David's laptop is hidden behind the bookshelf," she said, moving toward the wall. "Help me move this." Together, they carefully slid the heavy bookshelf away from the wall. Behind it was a small safe built into the wall itself. Princess Kate entered a combination and opened the safe, revealing a silver laptop along with several other personal items. "David gave me this the same day he gave me the key to the safety deposit box," she explained as she carried the laptop to her desk. "He said it contained everything I would need if something happened to him." Princess Kate powered on the laptop and waited for it to boot up. Marcus stood by the window, keeping watch for any signs that they had been discovered. The palace grounds were quiet, but he could see security lights moving in the distance as guards made their regular patrols. "It's password protected," Princess Kate said, staring at the login screen. "Do you know what he might have used?" "Let me think." She tried several combinations based on family birthdays and important dates, but none of them worked. After the 5th failed attempt, the laptop warned that it would lock them out if they tried again. "Wait," Princess Kate said suddenly. "There was something he used to say when we were children. Whenever we played games or made secret codes, he always used the same phrase." She typed carefully, "Truth will light the way." The laptop accepted the password and opened to reveal David's desktop. Marcus felt a surge of excitement and fear as they realized they were about to access the last work of a murdered prince. The desktop was organized with several folders, but one immediately caught their attention. Project Revelation. Princess Kate clicked on it, and they found themselves looking at dozens of documents, photos, and video files. "This is everything," she breathed. "All of his research, all the evidence he collected." Marcus looked over her shoulder as she opened file after file. There were bank records showing the flow of money from Russian accounts to the king's personal finances. There were email conversations discussing weapons shipments and delivery schedules. There were photographs of meetings between the king and various criminals and arms dealers. But the most shocking discovery was a folder labeled Insurance Policy. Inside this folder were contact details for 3 investigative journalists from different countries. Sarah Mitchell from the London Times, Carlos Mendoza from the International Herald Tribune, and Anna Petrov from the Moscow Independent. Each contact entry included detailed notes about how much information David had shared with them and what kind of evidence he had provided. "Look at this," Princess Kate said, clicking on Sarah Mitchell's contact information. David sent her copies of everything 3 weeks before he died. She was supposed to publish the story on the Monday after his death. Marcus read the notes David had written about his contact with the journalist. It says here that she confirmed receipt of all the documents and was working with her editors to verify the information. Why didn't the story ever run? Princess Kate opened another file, this one containing email correspondence between David and Sarah Mitchell. The last email was dated the day before David's death. "Sarah, I'm getting worried," David had written. "My father has been asking strange questions about my research, and I think he knows what I've discovered. If anything happens to me, please make sure this story gets out. The people of Valdoria deserve to know the truth about their king." Sarah Mitchell's response was brief but ominous. "David, I've been trying to reach you for 3 days. My editor has decided not to run the story. He says the evidence isn't strong enough, and that the legal risks are too high. I'm sorry, I think someone got to him. They bought off the journalists," Marcus said, feeling sick. "Or threatened them." Princess Kate continued scrolling through the emails. They found similar correspondence with the other 2 journalists. Carlos Mendoza's editor had suddenly fired him the week after David's death, claiming budget cuts. Anna Petrov had simply stopped responding to emails altogether. So all 3 journalists were silenced, Princess Kate said. "If they were able to influence newspapers in 3 different countries, then this conspiracy goes much deeper than just your father. He's working with people who have international reach and influence." Princess Kate opened another folder labeled Backup Plan. Inside was a single document that made them both freeze. "If the journalists fail to publish this story," David had written, "then I have prepared an alternative method of exposure. I have uploaded all evidence to a secure server that will automatically release the information to multiple news outlets and government agencies if I fail to check in every 72 hours. Princess Kate and Marcus looked at each other with growing excitement. "A dead man's switch," Marcus said. "If your brother didn't log into this system every 3 days, it would automatically send all the evidence to the press." "But it's been 6 months since he died," Princess Kate said. Why didn't it trigger? They found their answer in the next file. David had included detailed instructions for disabling the automated system, along with the login credentials needed to access it. He must have told Father about the dead man's switch when he confronted him, Princess Kate realized. Father forced him to give up the access codes before he had him killed. Marcus felt a chill as he understood the full scope of what had happened. Prince David had tried to protect himself by setting up an automatic exposure system, but his own father had tortured or coerced him into revealing how to stop it. "There's more," Princess Kate said, opening a video file. He recorded a message. Prince David's face appeared on the screen, looking tired and frightened. He was sitting in what appeared to be his private office, and Marcus could see that his hands were shaking as he spoke. "Kate, if you're watching this, then I'm probably dead. And you're in danger too," David said. "I want you to know that I tried to do this the right way. I tried to work through proper channels to expose Father's crimes without destroying the monarchy itself." The prince paused and ran his hands through his hair. "But Father is working with people who don't care about proper channels or legal processes. Viktor Kozlov and his associates have killed journalists, judges, and government officials in at least 6 countries. They won't hesitate to kill us too." Princess Kate wiped tears from her eyes as she watched her brother's final message. "I've left you everything you need to finish what I started," David continued. "But Kate, you have to be smarter than I was. Don't trust anyone in the government, don't trust anyone in the palace staff, and don't trust the regular media outlets. They've all been compromised." David leaned closer to the camera. "There's only one person I found who might still be able to help. Her name is Elena Vasquez, and she runs an independent news website called Truth Wire International. And she's based in Geneva, and she's not connected to any of the major media corporations that Kozlov's people can influence. The video provided Elena Vasquez's contact information and detailed instructions for reaching her securely. I've already sent her some preliminary information, David said. If you contact her and provide the authentication code Lighthouse77, she'll know you're legitimate. The video ended there, leaving Marcus and Princess Kate sitting in silence in the dark room. We have to contact this Elena Vasquez, Princess Kate said finally. Marcus nodded, but he was thinking about the practical challenges. How do we reach her without being detected? If your father's people are monitoring your communications. David thought of that too, Princess Kate said, opening another file. Look at this. The file contained instructions for using encrypted communication software and accessing the internet through anonymous networks. David had prepared detailed step-by-step guides for someone who had no experience with computer security. We can send her a message tonight, Princess Kate said, from this laptop using David's security protocols. Marcus looked at his watch. It was almost 1 a.m, and he knew he needed to get out of the East Wing before the guard returned from his extended smoke break. We should do it now, he said. We might not get another chance. Princess Kate spent the next 20 minutes following David's instructions to set up a secure internet connection. Marcus kept watch by the window, his heart racing every time he saw a security light in the distance. Finally, Princess Kate was ready to compose the message to Elena Vasquez. Ms. Vasquez, she typed. My name is Princess Kate of Valdoria. My brother Prince David was in contact with you before his death 6 months ago. Authentication code Lighthouse77. I have evidence that he was murdered to prevent him from exposing a major international conspiracy involving arms trafficking and government corruption. I need your help to finish what he started. Please respond if you are still willing and able to pursue this story. She included her encrypted contact information and sent the message. Now what? Marcus asked. Now we wait, Princess Kate said, and we try to stay alive long enough for her to respond. As Marcus prepared to leave, Princess Kate copied several of the most important files onto a flash drive. Take this, she said, handing him the drive. If something happens to me, you need to find another way to get this information out. Marcus took the flash drive and slipped it into his pocket, next to the key to the safety deposit box. In the span of 3 days, he had gone from being a simple palace guard to being one of the most dangerous people in the kingdom. How will I know if you're safe? He asked. Meet me tomorrow at the morning room where this all started, she said. If I don't show up, you'll know they've made their move. Marcus left the East Wing the same way he had entered, moving carefully through the shadows and avoiding the security cameras. As he walked back to his apartment, he felt like the entire world had shifted beneath his feet. In a few hours, he would have to report for his regular shift and pretend that nothing had changed. He would stand at his post and nod politely to the king, knowing that he was looking at a murderer and a criminal. But somewhere in Geneva, an independent journalist might be reading a message that could bring down one of the most powerful monarchies in Europe. Marcus thought about Prince David, who had died trying to expose the truth, and about Princess Kate, who was slowly being poisoned by her own family. He thought about his simple life before this week, when his biggest worry was whether he would get overtime pay. And he realized that no matter how this ended, he would never be that person again. The truth had a way of changing everything it touched, and Marcus Rodriguez was about to discover just how dangerous the truth could be. Marcus barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw images of Prince David's final video message and heard Princess Kate's desperate whisper. They killed him. When his alarm went off at 6 a.m, he felt like he hadn't slept at all. Getting dressed in his palace guard uniform felt different now. The crisp blue jacket and polished buttons that had once made him feel proud and important now felt like a costume he was wearing to deceive people who trusted him. As he walked to work, Marcus noticed things he had never paid attention to before. He saw how many security cameras lined the streets around the palace. He noticed the unmarked cars parked in strategic locations. He observed how many people seemed to be walking without any particular destination, just watching and waiting. For the first time since starting work at the palace, Marcus realized how closely monitored their lives really were. His shift began at 7, and he was assigned to the East Wing again. As he took his position in the hallway where he had first caught Princess Kate falling, he wondered if she would show up for their planned meeting at the morning room. The hours passed slowly. Marcus stood at attention, nodding politely to the staff members and minor officials who passed through the corridor. But his mind was entirely focused on watching for Princess Kate. At 10:30, she appeared at the far end of the hallway, walking toward him with what appeared to be normal confidence. But as she got closer, Marcus could see that she looked even paler than she had the day before. The dark circles under her eyes had deepened, and she was walking more slowly than usual. When she reached his position, she paused as if to adjust something on her dress. In that moment, she whispered quietly enough that no security cameras could pick up the sound. She responded, "Meet me at lunch." Princess Kate continued walking without another glance in his direction. But Marcus felt a surge of excitement and fear. Elena Vasquez had received their message and was willing to help. The rest of the morning dragged by at an agonizing pace. Marcus found himself studying every person who passed through his section, wondering which of them might be working for the king's criminal associates. He had always assumed that everyone in the palace was loyal to the royal family, but now he understood that loyalty could be bought or forced. At noon, Marcus was relieved by another guard for his lunch break. Instead of going to the staff cafeteria as he usually did, he made his way to the morning room where he had first learned about the conspiracy. Princess Kate was already there, sitting in a chair by the window and staring out at the palace gardens. She looked like she was posed for a casual portrait, but Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders. "What did Elena say?" he asked quietly as he approached. She confirmed that David had been in contact with her. Princess Kate replied without turning around. She said she had been waiting for 6 months to hear from someone in his family because she knew the story was too important to abandon. Marcus felt a glimmer of hope. Did she say she would publish it? "She wants to meet with us in person," Princess Kate said. "She's coming to Voldoria tomorrow, but she insists on meeting somewhere secure. She said the story is bigger than even David realized." "What does that mean?" Princess Kate finally turned to look at him. "Elena has been investigating Kozlov's organization for 3 years. She says the weapons trafficking operation David discovered is just one part of a much larger criminal network that includes drug smuggling, human trafficking, and political corruption in at least 12 countries. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the scope of what they were dealing with. "How are we supposed to meet with her safely?" "She gave me an address," Princess Kate said, handing him a small piece of paper. "It's a bookstore in the old part of the city. She'll be there tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Marcus read the address and memorized it before handing the paper back. "How do we know this isn't a trap?" "We don't," Princess Kate admitted, "but it's our only option. Elena said she has evidence that could not only expose Father's crimes, but could also lead to the arrest of Kozlov and dozens of other criminals across Europe." They sat in silence for a few minutes, both understanding the magnitude of what they were planning to do. They were about to meet with an international investigative journalist to expose a criminal conspiracy that reached from the palace where they were sitting to organized crime networks across multiple countries. "There's something else," Princess Kate said. "Elena warned me that if Kozlov's people realize we're trying to expose them, they won't just kill us quietly like they did with David. She said they'll make it public and brutal, as a warning to anyone else who might try to cross them." Marcus thought about his family, about his friends, about all the innocent people who could be hurt if this went wrong. "Are you sure you want to do this?" "I don't have a choice," Princess Kate replied. "I'm getting weaker every day. Yesterday, I could barely walk up the stairs to my room. If I don't do something soon, I'll be dead anyway." Looking at her more closely, Marcus could see that she was right. Her skin had a grayish tone that hadn't been there a week ago, and her breathing seemed labored even when she was sitting still. "Have you seen a doctor?" "I can't trust the palace doctors," she said. "For all I know, they're the ones administering the poison. I've been treating myself with whatever medications I can buy privately, but it's not enough." Marcus made a decision that surprised even himself. "After we meet with Elena tomorrow, we're getting you out of the country. Whatever this story leads to, you need to be somewhere safe while it plays out." Princess Kate looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Marcus, you understand that if we do this, there's no going back. Even if we succeed in exposing everything, our lives will never be the same. I'll never be able to live as a princess again, and you'll never be able to work as a palace guard. I know, Marcus said, but some things are more important than comfortable lives. They agreed to meet the next day at 1:30 near the bookstore where Elena Vasquez would be waiting. As they prepared to leave the morning room, Princess Kate grabbed Marcus's arm. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything you're risking to help me." Marcus nodded, not trusting himself to speak. As he walked back to his post, he thought about the conversation he had just had. 24 hours from now, he would either be a hero who had helped expose one of the biggest political scandals in European history, or he would be dead. The rest of his shift passed without incident, but Marcus found himself paying attention to details he had never noticed before. He observed which staff members seemed nervous or distracted. He noted which areas of the palace had increased security presence. He listened more carefully to the conversations happening around him. What he discovered made him deeply uneasy. During his afternoon break, Marcus overheard two senior staff members discussing enhanced security measures that would be implemented the following day. They mentioned increased monitoring of all communications leaving the palace and additional background checks for all staff members. Marcus also noticed that there were several new faces among the palace security team. Men he had never seen before, who didn't wear standard uniforms and didn't seem to follow normal protocols. Most disturbing of all, he observed King William having a private conversation with a man he recognized from the photographs they had found in Prince David's safety deposit box. The man was one of Viktor Kozlov's associates, and seeing him in the palace made Marcus's blood run cold. By the time his shift ended, Marcus was convinced that their plan had been discovered. Someone knew that Princess Kate was planning to meet with a journalist, and they were taking steps to prevent it from happening. That evening, Marcus sat in his apartment and tried to figure out what to do. He couldn't contact Princess Kate directly without risking both of their lives, but he couldn't let her walk into what was almost certainly a trap. He thought about calling the police, but he realized that if the king's criminal associates had enough influence to silence journalists in 3 countries, they probably had people inside the local police force as well. He considered trying to warn Elena Vasquez, but he had no way to contact her securely, and any attempt to reach her might only confirm to the conspirators that their suspicions were correct. Finally, Marcus came to a conclusion that terrified him, but seemed like their only option. He would go to the meeting tomorrow as planned, but he would arrive early and try to determine if it was safe before Princess Kate showed up. If he saw signs of a trap, he would try to warn her away. If the meeting seemed legitimate, he would proceed with their plan to expose the conspiracy. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was all he could think of. Marcus spent the evening preparing for what might be his last day alive. He wrote a letter explaining everything he had learned about the conspiracy, sealed it in an envelope, and hid it in his apartment where someone would eventually find it. He organized his personal belongings and made sure his rent was paid through the end of the month. Most importantly, he made copies of the most crucial evidence from Prince David's laptop and hid them in 3 different locations around the city. If something happened to him and Princess Kate, at least there would be a chance that someone would eventually discover the truth. As he prepared for bed, Marcus thought about the simple life he had been living just 1 week ago. He had been content with his job, satisfied with his routine, happy to remain invisible and unimportant. Now he was about to risk everything to help expose a conspiracy that could change the balance of power in Europe and bring down a criminal organization that had been operating with impunity for years. He thought about Princess Kate, alone in her room and slowly dying from poison, trusting him to help her find justice for her murdered brother. He thought about Prince David, who had died trying to do the right thing, and he thought about all the people around the world who had been hurt by the weapons that King William and Viktor Kozlov had sold to terrorists and war criminals. Marcus Rodriguez had never wanted to be a hero. He had never dreamed of being involved in international intrigue or political conspiracies. But tomorrow, he was going to walk into a bookstore in the old part of the city and either help expose one of the biggest criminal conspiracies in modern history or die trying. As he finally fell asleep, Marcus's last thought was a simple one. Some things were worth dying for, and the truth was definitely one of them. Tomorrow would determine whether he and Princess Kate lived to see that truth revealed or whether they would join Prince David in becoming victims of the very conspiracy they were trying to expose. Either way, Marcus knew he would rather die fighting for justice than live safely in ignorance. The morning would bring answers, one way or another. Marcus woke up before his alarm, his heart already racing with anticipation and fear. Today was the day that would determine whether Princess Kate lived or died, whether the truth about Prince David's murder would finally be revealed, and whether the international criminal conspiracy they had discovered would be exposed or remain hidden forever. He dressed carefully in civilian clothes, choosing dark colors that would help him blend into crowds. Before leaving his apartment, he checked one more time to make sure the copies of evidence he had hidden were secure and would be found if something happened to him. The bookstore where they were supposed to meet Elena Vasquez was in the oldest part of Valdoria's capital city, a neighborhood of narrow cobblestone streets and buildings that had stood for hundreds of years. Marcus arrived there at noon, 2 hours before the scheduled meeting, and spent time walking around the area to familiarize himself with escape routes and potential dangers. The bookstore was called Ancient Words and occupied the ground floor of a building that looked like it had been constructed in the medieval period. Large windows displayed old books and manuscripts, and the interior looked cramped but cozy. Most importantly, it had both front and back exits, which would be crucial if they needed to leave quickly. Marcus positioned himself at a cafe across the street where he could observe the bookstore and everyone who entered or left. He ordered coffee and a sandwich, but found that his stomach was too nervous to accept any food. At 12:30, he noticed the first suspicious activity. 2 men in business suits took positions at opposite ends of the street, pretending to read newspapers but clearly watching the bookstore. At 1 o'clock, a van with tinted windows parked near the back entrance to the building. Marcus's worst fears were being confirmed. The meeting was a trap, but as he continued watching, he noticed something that confused him. At 1:15, a woman who matched Elena Vasquez's description entered the bookstore through the front door. She looked around carefully before going inside, and Marcus could see that she was carrying a briefcase that presumably contained the evidence she had promised to share. If this was a trap, why was the journalist here? Had she been compromised, or was she walking into the same trap that had been set for Princess Kate? At 1:20, Princess Kate appeared at the far end of the street. She was wearing the same simple disguise she had used when they visited the bank, but even from a distance, Marcus could see that she looked terrible. She was walking very slowly and had to stop twice to rest against building walls. Marcus made a split-second decision that would determine the course of everything that followed. He left the cafe and intercepted Princess Kate before she reached the bookstore. "Don't go in there," he said quietly as he approached her. "It's a trap. There are men watching the building." Princess Kate looked confused and frightened. "But Elena is inside. I saw her go in." "I know, but there are also people outside who aren't supposed to be here. We need to find another way." Princess Kate leaned against a wall, breathing heavily. "Marcus, I can barely walk. Whatever they've been giving me, it's getting worse fast. If we don't do this today, I might not have another chance." Looking at her more closely, Marcus realized she was right. The poison was clearly accelerating, and she might only have hours or days left. But walking into an obvious trap would only guarantee that they both died without accomplishing anything. "There has to be another way," Marcus said. "Let me think." He looked around the neighborhood, trying to come up with an alternative plan. The area was full of old buildings with multiple entrances, narrow alleys that connected different streets, and small businesses that might provide cover. "What about the building next door?" Princess Kate suggested. "If it's connected to the bookstore somehow, maybe we could reach Elena without using the main entrance." Marcus studied the architecture of the adjacent buildings. Many of the structures in this part of the city had been built at the same time and shared common walls or connecting passages. "It's worth trying," he agreed. "But first, let me see if I can get a message to Elena to warn her about the surveillance." Marcus approached the bookstore from a side street that the watchers couldn't see. He entered quickly through a side door that led to a section of the store selling maps and travel guides. Elena Vasquez was sitting at a small table in the back of the store, reading a book but clearly watching the front entrance. When Marcus approached her, she looked up with a mixture of hope and suspicion. "Are you with Princess Kate?" she asked quietly. "Yes, but she can't come in here. There are people watching the building." Elena's expression immediately became more serious. I was afraid of that. I noticed them too, but I wasn't sure if they were here for me or for someone else. We need to find somewhere else to meet, Marcus said. The princess is very sick and we might not get another opportunity. Elena thought for a moment, then gathered her things. There's a church 2 blocks from here, St. Michael's Cathedral. It has multiple entrances and lots of places where people can meet privately without being obvious. Can you get her there? I think so. How will we find you? I'll be in the chapel dedicated to St. Catherine, on the left side of the main sanctuary. It's usually empty during the afternoon. Marcus nodded and prepared to leave, but Elena grabbed his arm. Wait, she said. Before we go any further, I need you to know what you're getting involved in. The information your Prince David gave me connects to investigations in 6 different countries. If we publish this story, it won't just bring down your king and Kozlov's organization. It will expose a network of corruption that includes government officials, military officers, and business leaders across Europe. How many people are we talking about? At least 200, maybe more. And these aren't just ordinary criminals. Some of them are people with the power to start wars or crash economies. They will do absolutely anything to prevent this information from becoming public. Marcus thought about the implications. What do you need from us? I need Princess Kate to verify that the evidence David gave me is authentic, and I need any additional evidence you've discovered since his death. Most importantly, I need both of you to go on record confirming your identities and your knowledge of the crimes. What happens after you publish the story? Elena's expression was grim. You disappear. Both of you. New identities, new lives in countries where Kozlov's people can't reach you. It's the only way you'll survive. Marcus felt the full weight of what they were about to do. By the end of today, if everything went according to plan, he and Princess Kate would no longer exist as the people they had been. They would become fugitives from one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the world. I'll bring her to the church, he said. Give us 20 minutes. Marcus left the bookstore and found Princess Kate where he had left her, sitting on a small bench and looking exhausted. Can you walk 2 more blocks? He asked. I think so. Did you find Elena? Yes, and she has a plan. But Kate, you need to understand what we're agreeing to. If we go through with this, our old lives are over. We'll have to disappear completely. Princess Kate looked at him with eyes that were filled with pain but also with determination. Marcus, my old life is already over. They're killing me slowly, and they've already killed my brother. At least this way, his death will mean something. They made their way slowly through the narrow streets toward St. Michael's Cathedral. Princess Kate had to stop 3 times to rest, and by the time they reached the church, Marcus was practically carrying her. The cathedral was a massive stone structure that had been built over several centuries. Inside, the high ceilings and stained glass windows created an atmosphere of peace and reverence that felt like a sanctuary from the dangerous world outside. They found Elena in the chapel she had described, kneeling as if in prayer, but clearly watching for their arrival. When she saw Princess Kate's condition, her expression immediately became concerned. Your Highness, you need medical attention immediately. I know, Princess Kate replied weakly. But first we need to finish what my brother started. Elena led them to a private room behind the main altar that was normally used for church meetings. She spread documents across a table and began explaining what she had discovered. Your brother's evidence was the missing piece we needed, she said. For 3 years, we've been tracking arms shipments that were ending up with terrorist groups and criminal organizations, but we couldn't trace the source. David's bank records and email evidence proved that the weapons were coming through Kozlov's network, with the approval and assistance of high-level government officials. She showed them a map that illustrated the scope of the criminal network. Lines connected countries across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, showing the flow of weapons, money, and influence. This organization has been responsible for fueling conflicts in at least 8 countries, Elena explained. The weapons your father helped provide have killed thousands of innocent people. Princess Kate stared at the map with tears in her eyes. I knew father was involved in something illegal, but I had no idea it was this extensive. There's more, Elena continued. We've discovered that Kozlov's people have been systematically murdering journalists, investigators, and government officials who got too close to exposing them. Your brother was just one of at least 37 people who have died under suspicious circumstances while investigating this network. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they had uncovered. How do we stop something this big? We publish everything at once, in multiple countries, through news outlets that can't be intimidated or bought off. Elena said, I've been coordinating with journalists and law enforcement agencies across Europe. When this story breaks, it will trigger simultaneous investigations and arrests in 12 countries. Elena pulled out a recording device and placed it on the table. But I need both of you to officially confirm your identities and your knowledge of these crimes. Are you ready to do that? Princess Kate and Marcus looked at each other, both understanding that this was the moment of no return. Once they made this recording, they would be committed to a path that would either bring justice for Prince David or get them killed. I'm ready, Princess Kate said. For the next hour, they recorded detailed statements describing everything they had discovered about the conspiracy. Princess Kate provided official confirmation of her identity and her relationship to Prince David. Marcus described finding the evidence in the safety deposit box and witnessing the meetings between King William and Kozlov's associates. When they finished, Elena packed up the recording equipment and prepared to leave. The story will be published simultaneously in 16 newspapers tomorrow morning, she said. By noon, arrest warrants will be issued in 12 countries. What about us? Marcus asked. Elena handed them each an envelope. These contain new identity documents and instructions for reaching a safe house in Geneva. You need to leave Valdoria tonight. A car will be waiting for you at midnight behind the cathedral. Princess Kate tried to stand but immediately collapsed back into her chair. I don't think I can travel, she said weakly. Elena looked at her with professional concern. There's a doctor at the safe house who specializes in treating poison victims. He's already been briefed on your situation. Will I survive long enough to get there? I don't know, Elena admitted. But staying here definitely means death. You have to try. As they prepared to leave the cathedral, Elena pulled Marcus aside. She's very sick, Elena said quietly. Even if we get her to Geneva, there's no guarantee the doctors can reverse the poison damage. You need to be prepared for the possibility that she might not survive this. Marcus looked at Princess Kate, who was struggling just to remain conscious. She's the bravest person I've ever met, he said. If she dies, at least it will be fighting for something that matters. As they left the cathedral that evening, Marcus realized that everything had changed forever. Tomorrow, the world would learn the truth about Prince David's murder and the international conspiracy that had killed him. King William would be arrested. Viktor Kozlov's organization would be destroyed, and hundreds of criminals across Europe would face justice. But tonight, he and Princess Kate had to survive long enough to see it happen. The car that would take them to their new lives was waiting in the shadows behind the cathedral. Marcus helped Princess Kate into the back seat, and as they drove away from the only life they had ever known, he thought about the simple palace guard he had been just 1 week ago. That man was gone forever. In his place was someone who had chosen truth over comfort, justice over security, and courage over safety. As they crossed the border into Switzerland, racing toward medical treatment that might save Princess Kate's life, Marcus realized that he had no regrets about the choice he had made. Some things were worth losing everything for, and the truth was definitely one of them.